Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Full Funnel Freedom podcast launch party. We are hosting a podcast contest at fullfunnelfreedom.com. You can get details there. We're already getting entries in. Please throw your questions in the chat. We're going to get going officially at the top of the hour, but popped in a little bit earlier. There we go. This is all new for me. I'm excited that the podcast is launching. We are there's Antonio. All right. So let's add to the stream. Welcome, my dear friend, mentor, colleague, author of not only Asking Questions the Sandler Way, but the 21st Century Ride Along, my dear friend Antonio Garrido, who I believe it is very late for you, sir.
Well, it's 9 in the evening, so it could be earlier, but hello, Hamish.
Hello.
Thank you so much for the invitation to talk. Next time.
Well, thank you for visiting. I'm throwing the links to your books in the chat. So those of you who are inspired by Antonio, as I am constantly inspired by him, can dive into those books and read them in more detail. And after you've watched Antonio, you will actually read the books in his voice. You will hear his voice in your head, which just really brings the text to life. I read Asking Questions the Sandler Way. I think it was at the Minneapolis airport on my way back from a trip to Baltimore. And all I could hear was Antonio's voice. And it was wonderful because it brought the text so much to life.
Well, thanks awfully. I was going to apologize, but after such glowing endorsement, I shall just say thank you and try to be magnanimous about that. But thank
Absolutely.
you.
Well, and you have a framed copy of Asking Questions right behind you, so we're getting that all rolled around.
A gift from one of my daughters.
I love it. So tell us, introduce yourself. You're a colleague of mine in Sandler. You've been a very big friend and mentor to me over the years that we've both been in the network together. But give us a bit of your background, 90 seconds on, where are you based in Sandler and what your background is.
So, 90 seconds for me, Hamish, that's a problem. So I've been with Sandler for about 8.5 years now, which sounds difficult to believe, but there you are at any rate. Yeah. And we operate out of Miami in South Florida. Mm-hmm. And prior to Sandler, I was a client, as lots of us kind of owners are. So I was a client, and my coach was the inimitable, the estimable Tom Neeson.
Yes.
Prior to that, when I first came out of university, I was an architect for a number of years. Then I did a second degree in strategic business management and ended up running for what you might call top Fortune 60 companies, right? So I ran 4 enormous companies, and then thought, you know what? I ought to try my hand at building a business myself. So, me and my brother Carlos, and we set to doing that, and we've done really rather well for ourselves, I have to say. So we've been very fortunate. Yeah.
I would say so as well. You've built an incredible business, an incredible team down in Miami, and you serve clients globally. You've got several large organizations that you work with, and it's a testament to you and all the amazing things that you do. So when it comes to full funnel freedom, which is the topic of my podcast, and making that funnel consistently look like a funnel instead of a pencil or an accordion or maybe a stomach in an antacid commercial. First of all, let's talk about those 21st century ride-alongs, because we think that as leaders, we've got to be in the field, we've got to be out with our people, and we usually screw it up. So what would be some guidance you would give us? Yeah, it's true. That's why you wrote a book.
Yeah. So our job, when if you get 100 sales managers in a room and you say, okay, 100 sales managers, tell me what your job is, right? What do you have to do? And they come up with an enormous list of things that they have to do, which is, they have to set budgets and goals and KPIs and resolve conflict. And they have to, fill in all the reports and deal with personnel. There's a million things. Yeah. But actually, their job is to make their team better. That's really is right. I mean, of course, they have the oversight, and of course, they have all of that goal-setting stuff. But their job, and it's a very overused analogy, I accept, but it's like the sporting or the military analogy. Their job is to make their team better. Their job is to constantly raise the bar, make sure that they have as many A players as they possibly can, make sure that they develop the B players and figure out a plan for the C players, right? So their job is to make the world better. And you can't do that remotely, because the thing about sales guys, if you have external sales functions who are zipping around in the world, COVID notwithstanding, but having lots of meetings all over the place, and this can be done virtually or on site. Largely what the sales team do, what the sales function do, is invisible. Yeah. It's fairly ephemeral. There isn't a really good record of anything. They just kind of show up, do their thing, and then we hope for good results. I remember the first real big sales manager's job that I had, and there were probably about 130 sales guys with maybe 20 or 25 managers, and I was given the job on my first day. The CEO said to me, so anyway, congratulations, welcome aboard. Let me show you your new office. I thought, oh, terrific. So he took me to my new office and said, here's your new office. And it was quite splendid. And he said, and here's your new desk. And it was quite remarkable. And then he said, and here's your new chair. I said, okay, getting the picture. And then he said, yeah, do you like it? I said, yes, I do. I like it enormously. He said, good. I don't expect to see you in it. And I thought, okay, so what does that mean? And I said, because. And he said, because your job is to make the team better. You can't do that from here in your ivory tower. Get out in the world and make the world a better place. So whilst ever the sales team are doing what they do, it's pretty invisible. Now, if you can imagine from a sporting perspective, my team is Manchester City, which is, I supported them years before they were fashionable to do. It was fashionable to do so. So before they had money, right? So anyway, the best manager in the world, head coach, is a chap called Pep Guardiola. Mm-hmm. If you imagine Pep Guardiola was, if you could imagine such a thing, was given the job of, managing Manchester City, one of the biggest clubs in the world, and the chairman says, okay, so the first game's on Saturday, so I'll see you on Saturday. And Pep Guardiola goes, do you know what? I'm not really one for going to the games, right? So I'll probably sit that one out, right? Which of course he would be within moments fired. And similarly, if he didn't show up to every single game, didn't go to every single training situation, day, didn't do, take a personal responsibility in the development of his players, he'd be fired. So you can't know how good a salesperson is. Just, it's almost like Pep Guardiola saying, I won't go to the game, but I'll read about it in the next pages on Sunday, right? That's good enough for me. Which is like just looking at the monthly sales figures, right? Totally. That's okay. So you have to go to every single game to figure out what's going on. So you have to be there. You have to see what they do, because you know what? And when you go and see what they do, you'll be amazed, because what they do is often quite surprising. Yeah. The other thing that you never see Pep Guardiola do, but you see sales managers do this like it's going out of fashion. So let's imagine that there's a penalty or a free kick, or you don't have to know very much about soccer to understand my point.
Mhm.
What he never ever does, no coach, no manager ever does this. They don't call timeout and they'll go, "Let me show you how this is done." And actually put their boots on and go onto the field, right, and take the free kick for them. It's never happened. But sales managers, they think that when they're out with their sales guys, you know, I don't want to say in a combative situation, but in a live situation,
Yep.
dealing with their issues, sales managers can see when their guys, you know, when their folks are about to step on a landmine. And what they do, of course, is they step right in and they go, yeah, I think what Bob was meant to say was, and then correct them kind of live real time. I have 4 children. Right. And, you know, one of our seminal books in Sandler is You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at Seminar.
Absolutely.
Well, let's extend that analogy for a second. So I taught for human beings how to ride a bike. And what you do, of course, is training wheels and all of that kind of nonsense.
Totally.
But there comes a point where you have to hold the seat, right, and run beside them and trot behind them. But there actually then comes another point where you have to let go.
Yeah.
And of course, they do tremendously well until the very second that they realize. And then the next thing that happens, within 5 seconds, they're covered in kind of blood and snot and tears. Now, I love my kids. Well, 3 of them at any rate, but largely, you know, they're okay. And I knew that when I let go, they were going to fall off because it's just that's just how it works. However, the absolute best way to learn how to not fall off a bike is to fall off a bike, and then you figure out what to do, right?
Yeah.
But if the sales manager goes into the field with the salesperson and doesn't set real clear goals for the day, doesn't look at it as a nurturing growth coaching opportunity, doesn't kind of stick to the right kind of roles that everybody's playing, when he doesn't do those things, and when he or she steps in to save somebody, they don't learn anything, right? They don't learn how to fall off the bike and then open themselves up for review. So I see a lot of sales managers rescuing, saving, a lot of them as well, perhaps depending on what your disc profile is. They also treat a ride along as a gotcha exercise, right? And
very much so.
Treat them as annual PDR reviews and so on. So we make, with all the right intentions, of course, but we make a catalog of mistakes when all we're trying to do is help them get better, and we just got to figure out how to do that. Did that answer your question? It seems like a very long answer, and I can't even remember what the question was now, but I'm sure I got somewhere close to it. I hope so I did.
You nailed it, and it reminds me of you know, snot and tears and blood kind of sounds like the sales funnel review meeting at the end of the quarter. But also my eldest daughter, who's 9, when she was learning to walk, she would have these moments where, and all children have them, where they bump into something, not in like a full like smash their head into it, but they hear a noise and they turn and they kind of just bonk slightly. And my wife at the time, because firstborn is like the fragile one, she'd be like, oh, and I would say, it's a learning opportunity. Probably like, can you stop saying it's a learning opportunity? It really annoys me. But it's exactly the same analogy of the bike, is like, if you don't fall off the bike, you will never know to not fall off the bike. And if we're continually rescuing our people in front of our prospects, number one, they ain't learning anything other than I should bring my manager along, and we don't have the time to do that. They also lose all their credibility in front of their prospect or their client. So they're like, well, why the heck am I talking to this person? I should just call Antonio in.
Right.
And it doesn't actually benefit us going forward, because as leaders, our only valuable is our time. And we need to be spending our time making our people better. So one of the many things I got out of the ride along book was the hot wash. Love the hot wash. We ran it as an exercise and as a role play in my leadership group here in Calgary earlier this year. Tell us about a hot wash, because I think it's really brilliant, especially in the age of Zoom, where we can just go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. We don't have the car time, the parking lot time to debrief. tell us a bit more about the hot wash, because I think it's brilliant.
Okay, well, I also have to, it'll be incumbent upon me to also mention the cold wash. So there's a hot wash and a cold wash, right? And this, again, is a military analogy that was taught to me by a chap that was in the British Army. He was in the infantry. And basically, if you can imagine that, I don't know, let's pretend that you've got some kind of division that are going to take a hill, right? So that's the hill, let's go take the hill. What they don't do is go, okay, lads, that's the hill we're going to go and take. Everybody clear, it's that hill. Okay, charge, right? Everybody run. So what they have, okay, is some sort of plan, one hopes, right? So they have a pre-event plan, right? So they have some kind of goals and objectives, and they have a strategy, and they figure out how they're going to try and take this hill. Now, of course, as the battle unfolds, as events unfold, and often at great speed and in unpredictable ways, right? They have to course correct, and that's perfectly okay. And at the end of the, once the skirmish has finished, or they got the hill, or they didn't achieve their objective, whatever, right? At the end of immediately after the event, what they then do, everyone in the military will know this, and if we have time, I'll tell you about Top Gun as well, because that's a great example of it. They then have what they call a hot wash. And the hot wash is, it actually started that they immediately, like straight away, start to debrief, right? When everything is very clear, everything is very, it's not kind of confined to, the annals of history or long-term memory. It's like immediate and straight away, whilst they're actually washing their guns, right? From all the grit and the dirt and the mud. But the barrels are still hot because they've been shooting, right? And it's called the hot wash. And it's that wash that they do straight away. They debrief, and immediately whilst they're washing their guns. And they can't say we'll do that tomorrow, because who knows? The enemy may show up any second again, right? Yeah. So they do what's called a hot wash, where they immediately say, okay, what was our primary objective? Did we achieve it? What was our secondary objective? Where did we win? Where did we lose? Some you win, some you learn, right? What did we learn? And they take time to review all of that kind of stuff. It's called the hot wash. Now, if you can imagine, let's now apply that to, just as you said, what a lot of sales managers do is they'll say, okay, so we've got 3 meetings this morning, we've got 3 meetings this afternoon, whether or not it's by Zoom or some other, synchronous video platform, or it's actually face-to-face and in person, is they'll do a pre-call plan, the good ones, and then they'll come out and say, that went okay, didn't it? Yeah, okay, so where are we off to next, right? There's no hot wash, right? There's no immediate review. What they tend to do is the cold wash more than anything else. The cold wash is, by the time, we've done our 2 days out in the field, then they'll typically end up in a restaurant or a pub or a hotel somewhere, and they'll say, so how did that one go? And what do you think of that? And largely it was okay, and directionally it was all right, and that's the cold wash. Right, so we have a hot wash and we have a cold wash. So the cold wash is all the weapons are cold now, and everything is kind of put away, clean for the morning. So we'll have a hot wash and a cold wash. What a lot of managers do is they're not so bad. The good ones have a real good pre-call plan. Great. And then the great ones have a hot wash after everyone that says, what did we learn? Right. Whilst it's brand new, when you said this and he said that, what perhaps could you have said better? Right. They do that full review. And they say, okay, well, now knowing what we've just learned, what should be some of our real key things that we're going to focus on in the next call? Right. So it's all very visceral, it's all very real, it's all very real time. And then at the end of the 2 days, they'll have a cold wash where things are a bit calmer. Everybody's like calm down. Emotions aren't perhaps running quite so high. And then so you think about, okay, well, what takes more time then? The hot wash or the cold wash? Which is more important, the hot wash or the cold wash? So to answer that question, let me just quickly tell you about, do I have time to tell you about Top Gun?
Please.
So Top Gun is a movie, of course, probably 3 movies by now, but it's actually a real place. There's a real place called Top Gun somewhere out in the Arizona desert, where the best aviators in the world go. So they go to Top Gun, not to learn how to fly a plane, because they wouldn't be a Top Gun if they couldn't do that. So we have the best aviators in the world. So they go to this place called Top Gun, to learn how to be even better. What they don't do is they don't kind of like, this is how you do a role. This is how you do this. None of that. Right? It's kind of figured that they know what they're doing, right?
Totally.
But they'll set up an event, and they'll basically say, so here's the pre-call plan, right? In other words, here's what we're going to try and execute. Here's what we're going to do. So they'll have a pre-call plan that basically says, you, Hamish, you're going to enter theater at certain, 500 feet, and this particular bearing at this particular speed, and then Antonio, you're going to enter theater at this, right? And they'll set some rules. Don't go above this height. Don't go below this height. And off you go, right? Largely, they don't, of course, try and kill the other person. They don't fire real missiles, but they try and capture images on the screen. And if they can catch your image, 3 images on a screen, you're considered dead. Anyway, so they'll do that pre-event plan. And people imagine that will take ages and ages and ages. And it doesn't. That pre-event plan takes about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
What they'll then do is they'll jump into their planes, and everybody will go and do their thing. And then everybody come in and they'll have a dogfight. And then people imagine, because they watch the movies, that these dogfights last like an hour, right? They last like 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
Not at all.
And then they land again, and they all get together, and then they do the debrief, the hot wash, right? Sorry about the dog. So, and then the hot wash, how long do you imagine that hot wash is? That's immediately after they've landed and they've all got back into the room. How long do you imagine?
It's a ton of time.
It's 45 minutes per minute in the air.
Wow.
Right? 45 on average, some of the longer, per minute.
Per minute.
Yeah. And then at the end of the day or the end of the week, they'll do a cold wash. Would probably take an hour or so. So which is more important, the hot wash or the cold wash? The hot wash is significantly more important because it's physical, and it's now, and it's real, and it's not theoretical, and it's absolutely real time and all of that kind of stuff. So the manager that just goes meeting, or observe, zoom, or listen to recording, on if it's cold call or audio. And doesn't spend the time doing that hot wash, that review. You may as well not do the pre-call plan. You may as well not have any objectives. You may as well not have any goals, because you're not learning anything from it. Because time served isn't the answer. It's some wisdom. You want your people to get better. You want them to get wiser. Wisdom comes from evaluated experience. That's where wisdom comes from, not just time served. Right. So just because a salesperson has been a sales professional for 30 years, that doesn't mean he's the Lionel Messi of this world. Right. And if Lionel Messi, another footballer, right, best footballer in the world, if anybody thinks it's Ronaldo, send me a postcard now. I'll enter to come into a battle with you. But if those guys every single day practice and try and get better and are open to learning and review and watch hours and hours and hours of tape again and again and again and again, and they're the best in the world. And if the Top Gun guys have to do it, they're the best in the world, then we have to do it. You have to do it. I have to do it.
100%. 100%. Antonio, I really appreciate you spending some time of your evening with us today. As always, you are a huge friend and mentor and supporter of mine, and very much appreciate all the insights that you've shared with the audience today. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I certainly look forward to catching up with you offline sometime soon. Take care, sir.
Talk to you soon. Thank you, Hamish. Bye-bye, everybody.
All right. So that was Antonio Garrido, author of Asking Questions the Sandler Way and the 21st Century Ride Along. I've put the links in chat where you can find out more about those books. You can actually click and buy them right off of our website. There's also links in the chat to the fullfunnelfreedom.com website where you can enter our launch contest, which is open until Monday, October the 11th, as well as the pod follow link. If you have not had a chance to subscribe, follow the podcast, click the pod follow link, and it'll take you directly to wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on an Apple device, it'll take you to iTunes. If it'll take you to, if you're on an Android device, it'll take you to Spotify. Of course, it's available wherever you get your podcasts. our next guest is here. So I'm going to invite him to join us, and welcome, Michael. Good afternoon. So Michael Stark from Wellco is our next guest. Would you give us 90 seconds? First of all, who are you? What's your role at Wellco? And then tell us a bit about Wellco. What do they do? And we'll carry on the conversation from there.
Sure. Thanks for that, Hamish. So my name is Mike Stark. I'm the sales director here at Wellco. I've been in the role here for about 2.5 years. Many years of sales and business development here in Alberta. So Wellco, we celebrated our 50th birthday this year.
Congratulations.
So we are in midlife right now. Red convertible or anything, but we're doing well. Fantastic company, family-run business. We have 32 employees here. Everyone matters. We all have a role to play, and that's the great story about it. So with Wellco, what we do is we help all our customers. We support them in making applications and pump, moving, and mixing of their resources. So heavily in Western Canada, oil sands, potash, hard rock mining, up in the territories with some diamonds and things like that as well too. Rebuild shop in the back, a lot of technical people as well too. So that support we find is really coming in great these days with some shifts in our end users organizations as well.
Very cool. Very cool. So Mike, coming from the outside, as a lot of us do as sales leaders, we come in and because we've had a lot of success elsewhere, someone notices that and says, hey, how about you come join my team? And we take a look at the business. And we say, yeah, you know what? Really like the business. Let's join this team. So you've come in from the outside. It's a mature business. You don't get to be around for 50 years or 47 and a half when you join the team without doing things well. But in the context of creating full funnel freedom, what is the journey that you've really been on in terms of taking a look at that sales organization and saying, okay, we're good. Maybe we could be great. Maybe we could be excellent. What have some of the things that you've experienced been, and what are you doing to keep moving the team forward to that state of full funnel freedom?
Yeah, that's a great question, Hamish. So one of the things that really attracted me to Wellco was about the story, the clients they worked for and the solutions they had to provide. So after signing on, you always kind of spend your first 4 to 6 weeks kind of getting to meet the people, understanding them the whole bit. So what I came to understand about the team that I had was, a lot of experience by way of years. A lot of heavy, have great relationships and the usual sales talk. But the one thing that I did find early on in my assessment of the team and the organization is we just didn't have that common denominator about how we operated. It's almost like everyone acted as an independent contractor and how they went about doing their thing.
Sure.
They were successful to that point, but everything was in silos, and there kind of wasn't a whole lot of that commonality. And that wasn't, to disparage anyone professionally.
No,
the company had always been successful to date in that model. And, I identified that, there was probably something, else that we could do to leverage, the good people in the good company.
Totally. So then you've done your analysis, like, all great sales leaders do, is we come in and we say, okay, what have I got? I grew up in British Columbia, and there was a columnist for the Vancouver province. His name was Neil McRae. And if any of you ever read Neil McRae, after pretty much every Vancouver Canucks game, his column was get rid of the entire team. Like literally that was the column the whole time. Get rid of the goalies, get rid of the defense, get rid of the forwards, get rid of the coach, get rid of the GM. That's not realistic, right? We don't come in and just say, clear all you out. I'm going to bring in that just doesn't work in today's world. I don't even know if it ever really worked. So you sat back and looked at the team and said, okay, don't necessarily have a common denominator. We've got a bunch of really great lone wolves, for lack of a better analogy. How do you start to bring them together around a common language, common process to really step up their game and make them a bit more successful by design instead of by default?
Yeah, so with that, kind of going back and, once we landed on, Sandler, I believed as a leader, my role was to create an environment and to support, those people in the environment, knowing that some would accelerate and say, wow, I can't believe this, I've been waiting for it. Or others, they kind of waited back in the weeds and, kind of how it went.
Yeah.
And, quite truthfully, Hamish, I mean, as you know, there are people too that deselect on their own.
Yep.
Through no fault of, the company or leadership. They just realize that, what, this isn't for me. And they move on. We always wish them well. And, so that's how we came about it. And then those that were kind of left, we kind of coalesced around that common language. Right. And, you kind of hear the terms getting used around the office, or people stopping others and saying, well, no, let's do that. What was the upfront contract? So you hear the terminology. Yeah. And that's when you know that you've created the environment for them to be successful.
Totally. Yeah. One of the things that we've talked about, I know privately as well as in public sessions, is wonderful human being, bad fit for the role. Doesn't make him any less of a wonderful human being, just maybe not a good fit for the role. And, the people that get us to a certain point are maybe not the people to get us to the next mountaintop in our journey. So as you are going through your leadership journey in, taking over a team from the outside and creating this sales funnel that's going to consistently, reliably look like a funnel instead of maybe a pencil, what are some of the things that you would encourage other leaders who are maybe earlier in the journey than you are to do to support their teams and make this journey successful for themselves?
And so one of the areas that, I realized early on what was going to be different is, the Sandler and engaging with you, Hamish, and your team. This wasn't about, hey, Thursday and Friday, we're going to be with Hamish. We're going to get the binder, the DVD, and we're out of here, right? I love the positive reinforcement model. So we all come together, we go apart, and even in foundations, right? People were accountable for homework, preparing for role plays and things like that too. Totally. So my advice is if you think that you're going to, use X amount of hours that you're going to have to work on every week, invest, more hours in that. And, Absolutely. You'll really see the team take off as well, because they do need support early on and, through kind of verifications and check-ins through the week. So here we have, we get together as a team on Monday. It's called Launch Monday. And then on Friday, we have one-on-one time, and it's called Finish Line Friday. And that's their time, for them to come back to me, to clear roadblocks or, seek, different levels of authority in the whole bit. So it was about building the cadence as well too, and keep that in mind early on of, what it's going to look like every week, and build it into your schedule and build it into their schedule as well too.
Brilliant. Yeah. Great advice. Consistency, reliability. One of the things that I had heard, way back when the beginnings of social media is a social contract. So if you're going to start a blog or a podcast or something like that, and you're going to publish once a month, twice a month, once every week, you better publish once a month, twice a month, once a week consistently at the same date and time. Because if you don't, your audience is like, well, you're just yet another person who started a thing and then abandoned it. And so that having that consistency with your salespeople really builds trust. I know another thing in the last couple of minutes that we have together that I've seen you adapt really, really well, and is understanding that the way that we as leaders want to communicate something may not be the most resonant with the people on our team. So how have you adjusted your style or learned to take into account how other people like to give and receive information to make your messaging to the team that much more effective?
Right. So one of the tools early on with, Sandler is everyone goes through the DISC profile. And again, DISC is just a tool, but I use that as guidance in my meeting preparation with people, depending on what the topic is. If I anticipate that it might be a little prickly, I go into those areas where they operate the best or where they're more motivated than other areas. And I work to tailor my communication towards them and their questions as well too. So it doesn't turn into a, I win, they lose. It's about being productive, getting to the end. They walk out, they're happy, they're motivated. And, I walk out as well going, I provided clarity. I provided, the offer for support and the whole bit. Absolutely. And, believing that there was going to be more success.
Absolutely. And want to reinforce something that you said, which is a genius move, pre-call plan. As leader, we well, theoretically coach our salespeople to pre-call plan for everything. That's what Antonio was just talking about. But as leaders, we sometimes forget that when we're talking to our direct reports, especially if it's going to be a little prickly, having that real solid pre-call plan, as opposed to, really, otherwise we're just going off of our gut. And I can tell you from my own experience, I walk out and go, why didn't I say, or why did I say? Usually the conversation doesn't go as well. And I know from lots of our clients, the leaders that we support, when they do those pre-call plans, they usually end up in a win-win outcome with their direct report. So thank you for highlighting that. Mike, as we're wrapping up, what else would you like to share? It could be about Wellco. It could be about how to create full funnel freedom, some tips for the audience today. The floor is yours to wrap us up.
Again, it's just, it's sticking to a recipe, not giving up. There's going to be days and weeks where, you go through this process as you start to ramp up the team and the whole bit, but believe that, this is really a journey. It's not about the Thursday, Friday, I got the binder and I'm out of here. This is a way of life, and, you bake it into the cadence, and, it turns out well for everyone.
Amen. Thank you, Mike. You are a real inspiration for us and for your colleagues that are with you in training as well. You've done an amazing job in taking a team that was already successful by default, which is not a bad thing, and really creating some success by design and leveraging all of your wonderful insights to make that team really create full funnel freedom. So thank you for joining us today. Look forward to connecting with you offline sometime soon. Take care.
Thanks, Hamish.
So I want to say thank you to Antonio and to Mike for joining us. We've got several other guests coming up on the live stream. Please use the chat. If you have questions for me, please throw them in the chat. Certainly happy to answer those questions in as real time as I can. And I will be also adding a few more things to the chat. We're expecting a couple of other guests who we want to highlight some of the great works that they are doing. Some have asked me, how did this whole podcast thing all come about? And talked about it on a few platforms, but certainly happy to talk about it here. I really don't like talking about myself. In fact, my associate Nisha had said to me, we were doing a bit of a pre-call plan for this, and she said, you're going to have to talk about yourself. I know you don't like that, but you're going to have to do it. And I said, yeah, I know that's kind of part of this thing. So the whole full funnel freedom thing started with an article I published back in August of 2018 on my LinkedIn profile. I publish roughly once a week on LinkedIn, unless I'm on holidays. One of our core beliefs with Sandler and Calgary is that when we're on holidays, we are literally on holidays. No phone, no email, no business social media. And my team holds me accountable, and we all hold each other accountable to doing that. So I published this article called Full Funnel Freedom. It had some of the highest engagement that I've ever got on an article. And it was also one of my shorter articles. I tend to go long, as they say in journalism sometimes. And part of that is I just get really excited about what it is that I do, and being able to support sales leaders in creating full funnel freedom, supporting their salespeople. And I published this article, and it got a bunch of traction. And so Nisha and I were chatting at our planning session several months later, and she said, well, hey, what if we did something related to full funnel freedom? And so we started doing Full Funnel Freedom Friday videos, and we do those once a month, and we've still been doing those once a month. We're about 2 years into those videos, and you can find those on our Sandler and Calgary LinkedIn, Facebook, Sandler and YYC on Twitter and Instagram. So that's where it started. And then after that had gained some traction, Nisha pitched me the idea of doing a podcast and said, hey, let's do the podcast. Let's do a podcast. And I said, well, okay, don't really know what that's going to look like. Chewed over it a little while, and then ended up hiring someone ended up hiring a consultant, Anna Parker Naples, out of the UK to support us with the launch, and we've engaged her to go to support us on an ongoing basis. And so I've learned a ton about podcasting on the back end. There's a lot of things going on. I see that the chat on LinkedIn is not connected to the StreamYard, so do forgive me. I am not monitoring that as well as I can be. So if you are on LinkedIn and you are not seeing an answer to your chat, I would encourage you to jump over onto StreamYard and we will access that as we are going through. I will do my best to answer those questions in real time, but I have our next guest who is been very, very patiently waiting for me. Oh, there's the live stream, and now I'm looking at myself in stereo, as they would say. So, Justin, good afternoon. Welcome.
Hi, Hamish. You can hear me okay?
I can hear you okay now. It's great to see you. So, Justin, please introduce yourself. Who are you? What business do you represent, and what does that business do?
Right on. Well, thanks, Hamish, and congratulations for launching your podcast. Thanks for having me part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so Justin Caskey, owner of Patching Associates Acoustical Engineering. Patching Associates, we work with the owners of facilities and the designers of infrastructure projects to understand and manage the risk of noise emissions from their projects. Noise is everywhere, and because of that, it's produced anytime something moves or energy is used. We see a fairly broad range of projects, from supporting like regulatory applications and noise mitigation design for large energy projects, to finding the best place to put noise barriers along freeways, to working with architects to design ventilation systems in schools. We touch a lot of industries. So that's a little bit about us.
That's a lot. That's a very cool business to be in, and I know you're branching out into other areas, which we'll certainly chat about during our visit today. But when we think about engineers, my grandfather was an architect. He went to University of British Columbia, and as my mom tells the story, he graduated, and they said, "Congratulations, you're a small business owner now." And he said, "No, you trained me to be an architect." And similar with engineers, right? You are a professional, you get trained to be an engineer, and that sales thing is kind of that dirty thing that happens over on the side. We'd rather kind of be doing the work. And forgive me if I'm being uncharitable to engineers in general, Justin, but you took over a business, right? You didn't found Patching. You bought the business. You and a partner did, and you've really transformed a engineering focused business, which Patching Associates is an engineering business, into a really sales focused and organization that is now expanded globally, I think we can say. So what was the journey? How did that spark come from, of like, well, we're doing awesome, but I wonder if we did this, we might be more awesome, in terms of creating a sales culture and full funnel freedom at Patching Associates?
Yeah, that's a great, and that I could definitely relate to the story and the journey with respect to graduating school and then getting into a small business that's in a fairly niche realm, and learning that not only did I have to practice my craft of engineering, some fairly technical engineering, also create demand for those services, which is the sales side of things. So definitely that story resonates to me. And Patching Associates, as you mentioned, Patching Associates has been around for about 3 decades. I started buying into the company a couple decades ago, almost 2 decades ago. And through that time, there's been 3 pretty significant downturns in our local economy that definitely impacted our business. So before the first downturn that I've experienced anyways, and our business has experienced a few more, and traditionally we were wearing many hats. Engineers were also doing proposals, also doing relationship management, also trying to find out and get involved in our clients' businesses. That's a lot of hats to wear. After that kind of second downturn, we're like, hey, this is the market's changing. This traditional model for engineering seems to need a pivot for us. And we also found that as the demands on engineers became pretty great, like from a technical perspective, just modern engineering is pretty technical. We needed to carve out some space. So that's what we decided to pivot and invest in that, in the sales art and the sales profession. And that's when I joined your classes, and to start to learn about that, to really understand some ways to get a little bit more in tune with our clients' businesses.
Yeah, awesome. And we've been on this journey for a while now, and the business has changed. And when we started, you were very much, focused Western Canada. You now are a global business. But I'm going to guess that when you started rolling out some of these changes internally, it wasn't, "Oh, boss, I'm so glad you came up with this idea to make us a sales culture. Thank you so much." Like, you had some resistance. Fair?
Fair. Yeah. Fair.
And
and
what
even,
did you do?
yeah. So there's a training aspect, and none of it is immediate, but it is an investment that kind of pays dividends over time and through compounding. Part of that is also just to recognize that there is a lot of strength in both, I guess, professions.
True.
And the strength is really realized when both perspectives and professions can work together. Because then it becomes about the client. Then it becomes about what the client's business needs in order to succeed. And there becomes an opportunity for us to provide value to them. Totally. And that's kind of the secret sauce that over time we can demonstrate, hey, the client's saying this. Why don't we pivot our engineering service to provide this? Right. And from that, innovation starts to work. In my experience, and from my perspective as an engineer, that's one of the things that really gets me going is solving problems in a new way. And because we're tied in with those relationships in a deeper way, we can then solve problems in a better way that feels good, really feels good, helps us help more people, helps our clients' businesses succeed. And that's where we start to build some momentum towards overcoming that resistance. And the resistance isn't for any real specific reason other than it's different. It's not typical. It's different, and that stands out in our industry as well.
Very much so. And any human beings abhor change anyways, right? Death, taxes, and change are the three things that we fear. So it doesn't mean that you don't have awesome team members at Patching. Any change is going to meet with resistance, whether it's, hey, we're becoming a sales culture, hey, we're expanding to Denver, or we're changing the coffee in the break room. There's going to be some sort of resistance. One of the things that you just mentioned is relationships. And from our work together, one of the things that I at least hear in the stories from your team members is that idea of the quarterly check-in. And I can't remember what Patching calls it specifically, but that continual check-in with our client, being proactive so that we are managing our relationship. So it is a real relationship, and we can uncover additional opportunities to expand. So you mind sharing a bit more about how those consistent quarterly check-ins or project reviews have been beneficial?
Yeah, we project reviews are a client experience call. That's what we call it. And I don't know how many times, and it's not something that happens naturally. Oftentimes we finish a project and everybody's happy, and we kind of, time goes on, and a lot of times because our projects have implications later on, they kind of, the dust doesn't settle, especially because we're involved with multiple stakeholders, and the engineering design takes a while to implement. Oftentimes the real insights don't come until a few months later. So building the practice to with our clients to have a check-in 3 months down the road has been really valuable. When we first started doing it, it wasn't a habit, and it was a little bit tough to kind of get going on. And sometimes we still struggle with it. Yeah. I don't know how many times a client has been in the call. We've made the time to have a coffee or make a phone call or have a phone call. And they say, "Well, thank you so much for this. This is exactly what I needed." And had we not kind of scheduled it ahead of time, we wouldn't have done it. And so that appreciation kind of reinforces it. And more so, very, very often we get more work from it. So it's very good for our business. And we review, anytime we do work, we get the opportunity to do work. We view it as because we're in the space where the public is helped. If we get involved and provide
Right.
engineering insights for noise emissions or noise
Mhm.
pollution even. The public is helped when we get involved in a project. So oftentimes clients thank us for that. And they're grateful that it just, we stay ahead of it proactively as opposed to waiting until there's some sort of fire. Yeah.
Fair enough. And it must be really, as you say, gratifying and gives that little bit of momentum because, sales, like engineering, is tough, right? We in sales, we get told no more than we get told yes. In engineering, we've got to make sure that everything lines up and all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. And especially in your world where literally there are regulatory requirements and the public is involved, we've got to be precise. We can't just, slapdash and hope things work out. Like it's got to be precise. And sometimes that can get draining. Fair?
Yeah, very much. And I would add one aspect to that is that because the world is changing so fast, all around us, in order to make sure we give the client the most value and we do our job the best we can, we have to continue to innovate. And sometimes in our world, if we kind of innovate that 1 or 2%, that 1 or 2% becomes a little bit of a status quo buster, and it becomes we have to put even more and risk that it might not fit with our client or fit with the project, in which case the relationship is even more, that the value of that, the strength of the relationship is even more important.
True.
In innovation.
And so speaking of innovation, because you have really taken some steps to take patching into another step forward. So as we're wrapping up here, I'd love if you would share with the audience some of the cool things that you're looking at doing, as much as you're comfortable sharing or able to share, about what innovations is patching leading to support your clients going forward.
There's a lot. Well, there's a lot of stuff that we're really proud of as a team. From expanding into taking some of the kind of the homegrown Alberta expertise and best practices and expanding into Australia, big leap. And the new way of doing things is really appreciated by our on the projects that we're supporting in Australia. So that's an example, but the one that really comes to mind, the one that I'm quite passionate about right now, and that we're working on really hard, is to create. There's portions of our work we kind of bridge the space between regulatory work and engineering work, and the regulatory side of things has got a lot of I guess demand for the services right now. And it's also a prime opportunity to move it online, and a lot of the work can be done online to make it much more convenient and much more adaptable to our clients' needs. So we're working on that right now with launching the platform called soundcomply.com to take some of our traditional services, move them online. So projects that are being planned can be planned earlier on without doing a full engineering study. They can be done early on, and that benefits our client's project over the long run, because it allows them to avoid surprises as it goes through. So that's a good one. There's a lot of other like techie ones that are pretty cool too. Some cool stuff on our LinkedIn page about those techie ones that are we've got some cool stuff happening with drones and 360 cameras and sound mapping and digital twins and all that stuff. So it's fun.
Oh, that's amazing. I threw Sound Comply in the chat just to go check it out. It's a really cool platform. Justin, when we're talking about regulatory, I think the phrase, the word surprise is usually not a positive thing. So having a tool to be able to support your clients and other organizations who are looking to eliminate or reduce surprises in their projects, I'm sure is incredibly valuable. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join us on the launch party. Thank you very much for all your support over these years, and look forward to catching up with you offline sometime soon.
Thanks very much, Hamish, and thank you for all your support. It's been awesome. Have an
awesome rest of your day. So we've had visits from Antonio Garrido, Mike Stark, and Justin Caskey as we are launching. If you are watching on LinkedIn, I have a notice on my StreamYard that not able to post to LinkedIn. Not exactly sure why that is, but that I'm not able to post a chat on LinkedIn. So you could follow it on the Sandler and Calgary Facebook feed, or you could certainly join the StreamYard and chat from there. So we're going to have a couple of other guests coming up. So do feel free to chat in your questions if you have questions around creating full funnel freedom, questions about my background, questions about Sandler, the team here at Sandler in Calgary. And we have lots of other things on the go with promoting the podcast this week. We were number 78 in podcast in business category in Canada earlier this morning. We were number 5 in the career section, which is apparently very, very good. So really appreciate all of your support on getting us to that point, and certainly looking to carry on that momentum as we go throughout the week. We will be dropping episodes every single day this week for, I think that's 7 total, because we dropped 3 on Monday. So there'll be 7 episodes dropping this week. And then as of next week, we will be going to once a week on Monday mornings. So please continue to rate and review, share with your network, follow and subscribe on whatever platform you happen to be using. Again, we are running a launch contest on fullfunnelfreedom.com, which carries through to next Monday. So if you're in Canada, after you've had your Thanksgiving meal and maybe you want a little time away from your family, so to speak, go take a look at entering our contest. Super simple. Really what we're looking for is for you to do a review, take a picture of the review, upload it. We've got a bunch of really, really awesome prizes. First prize is a Kindle e-reader bundle with the Kindle e-reader, as well as a curated selection of books that we will ship directly to you. We have 5 secondary prizes, which is a $100 Amazon gift certificate in your local currency. So whether you're in the UK, the US, Canada, Sweden, China, we will be giving you a $100 Amazon gift card in the currency of your local market. And then there are 10 third prizes. It'll be a package of 3 books. The first one is by Dr. Carol Dweck. It's called Mindset, which we gave to our leadership group here in Calgary going on 7 or 8 years ago. And to this day, clients of ours, both who are still in that program, as well as ones who we are still connected with, who are no longer attending on a regular basis, they still bring up the lessons from Mindset that they learned. So it's a really, really powerful book if you haven't had a chance to check it out. And Professor Dweck has several TED Talks that you can check out as well. The other 2 books in the package are going to be mine, Accountability the Sandler Way and Change the Sandler Way. I'm going to autograph both of those. I will not autograph Dr. Dweck's book, but you will get a curated package of 3 books sent directly to you, designed to support you in creating full funnel freedom. As we just heard from Justin, when we are implementing full funnel freedom, it can be really challenging because we have to manage the change process with our team. And that can be incredibly challenging for our people because change is really an external process. Change is really like a light switch. We don't have a CRM today. We do have a CRM tomorrow. Our office is located in this part of town today and is located in that part of town tomorrow. Our health benefits plan looks like this today and it's going to look like that tomorrow. That's change. It's external, it's impersonal. Unfortunately, we have these squishy emotional beings in our organization called our team, and humans don't change, they transition. And there are 4 stages of transition, which are denial, resistance, exploration, and acceptance. And some of our team members will never, ever get out of one of those first 2 stages. The challenge that we have as leaders is we actually go through those same stages of transition back when we decided to make the change. So for some really large scale changes, that might be 6, 12, 18 months before we roll out the change to our team. And we forget that we went through all the stuff that they're now experiencing. So when we stand up in front of our people and say, hey, everybody, we're going to do this, and we don't get 100% universal, yay, boss, I can't imagine why we haven't done this before, we're very confused. And so if we don't keep in mind that we went through exactly what our people are going through now, we can end up getting really, really frustrated. And Mike talked about the cadence perspective of staying consistent, because any sort of change initiative, doesn't matter what it is, you're going to implement full funnel freedom, you're going to move the office, it doesn't matter. We are going to have to keep on pace. And one of the best ways to keep our people on pace is to share our vision in the form of questions. So instead of saying, we're going to create full funnel freedom, or we're going to double revenue in the next 3 years, we go to our team and we say, so how are we going to do that? How are we going to double? Hey, everybody, how are we going to double revenue next 2 years? This is the vision. This is the place we're going. How are we going to do that? Now, we need to appreciate that not everybody's going to make that journey with us. And in my book on change, I talk about angels, agnostics, and atheists. And it's because I'm an author and I like alliteration. But angels are our change champions. They're the ones who see the vision, buy into the vision right away. They're all in. On the flip side, the atheists are the ones where, as Justin and I just talked about, even if we're changing the coffee in the break room, they're going to be against it. Doesn't matter what the change is, full stop, non-negotiable, don't care, digging my heels in, not interested. Those two groups typically represent 20% of our organization in equal parts. So 20% of our people are going to be angels, 20% are going to be atheists, roughly. And this middle 60%, this movable middle, are the agnostics. They are the ones who are likely to be watching what's going on and saying, is this a flavor of the month? Is this a challenge that we're having that boss is going to forget about? Maybe he, went to a conference and he heard some guy named Hamish talk about full funnel freedom and he's all pumped and excited about it, and this too shall pass. So they're often veterans who have been through a bunch of flavor of the month corporate changes, and they probably were angels at some point in their career, and they got burned by a leader who saw a shiny object, decided to play with it for a little while, and then when the next shiny object came along, they ditched it and didn't even consider what was going on for the rest of the people who were actually engaged in implementing that change. What we have been taught as leaders is to go down to that bottom 20%, the atheists, and to coach, cajole, beg, threaten, bribe to get them on board. And the fact of the matter is they aren't, because they are there by choice. They could choose to make a different choice, and they could choose to get on board, but they're choosing through their behavior to resist our change, basically to become donkeys. And doesn't make them any less of a human being, as an analogy. There's a football coach named Tom Coughlin, and if you don't watch American football, the NFL, he was the original coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who was an expansion team. He was their very first coach when they entered the NFL. Their Jaguars' current coach, Urban Meyer's, in a bit of a hot water from some things that happened on the weekend, which I'm sure you can find all over the internet. But Coughlin was considered a disciplinarian coach. And in pro sports, you typically have the rigid disciplinarian, Tom Coughlin, Bill Belichick, and then you've got the players coach, and can't really think of one because they don't tend to last very long and they tend not to be very successful. But when Coughlin got fired, because after a while, the disciplinarian tends to wear the team out. And we can even see this in our personal lives, with our children. Eventually they hear the same thing over and over and over again. And they're like, yeah, tuning mom and dad out, which is why I say to some of our clients when we're first deciding whether or not to work together is sometimes Uncle Hamish has to come in and say the same thing that you've been saying for the last 9 months. And they're like, yeah, I totally get that. And what's amazing is when me or one of my colleagues are facilitating and they say something, and one of the individuals in the room, one of the direct reports goes, "That's brilliant." And I've actually seen leaders in the back of the room physically shake their head. And I can tell they're thinking, I've been saying that to you for 9 months. What the heck? So back to Coughlin. So Coughlin gets fired eventually by the Jaguars, and he takes over the New York Giants. Number one media market in the country, New York City. Everybody's thinking this guy's going to get eaten alive by the press. He's not going to last very long. If you follow American football in any way, you know that he actually did really, really well with the Giants. And in fact, beat Tom Brady and the Patriots twice in the Super Bowl, and in one case denied them the very first perfect season in NFL history since the Miami Dolphins back in 1972, I believe it was. And he went and had this great success in New York. And someone eventually, of course, asked him about it. They said, Tom, like, this is who you were in Jacksonville. You're still sort of that same guy in New York, but like, what's different? And what Coach Coughlin said is he decided he was going to ignore the bottom 20%, not in a you're not worthy human beings perspective, but he decided he was going to invest his time in the angels, in the upper 20% who were really bought in, because what he figured out is the agnostics are watching both sides and they're looking to see which way the wind is going to blow. And if the angels are really starting to move forward and they're really starting to adopt, and they're coming down and telling the agnostics, you know what? I bet you think this sounds really bad. It's really not. It's actually quite easy. Let me show you how I'm doing it. And that can be some of the most powerful ways we as leaders can affect change, is by getting our angels, cousin Diane and cousin Dave, to go down to the agnostics and say, hey, everybody, I know that Hamish says that we're going to create full funnel freedom and he wants us to do this and this and this and this and this. We're still going to get to the same mountaintop that he wants to get to, but we're just going to do it in a slightly different way than he's said. Still the same mountaintop, and that's what he's looking for, is the mountaintop. He's not necessarily looking for us to literally follow his path, because he wants us to actually design the path for ourselves. So when we are implementing any sort of change, especially as we go down the path to full funnel freedom, get your angels to be going down and coaching your agnostics and pulling them back up. What you'll find is as the change goes, you're going to rebalance. The atheists are probably going to self-select, which is one of my favorite HR cliches. And basically they're going to move on from the organization because they're going to say, well, if this is the way the ship is going, we're only 1 degree to the right from the path that we're going on. I just ain't interested in doing this. I'm going to go find somewhere else, somewhere that tolerates mediocrity. And the agnostics, some of them may fall down to the atheists. Some of them may bump up into the angels category. And when one of your direct reports is in that exploration phase, right? We have denial, we have resistance, exploration, and commitment is when their behavior starts to change. I'm a very big believer in behavior. I'm really not interested in what someone says, because people can say lots of things and make it sound really good. I'm really interested in what they do. And if their behavior matches their words, I know that they're on the right path to successfully adopting whatever change that we're implementing. We have our next guest who has arrived, yet another friend, colleague, mentor of mine, my dear friend Mike Crandall, who is based in Oklahoma City. He is also the author of Motivational Management, The Sandler Way. Put the link in the chat. So if you want to check out Motivational Management, The Sandler Way, click the link and you can actually buy a copy and get it shipped directly to you. So Mike, welcome. Please introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are, a little bit about your background, and what brought you into the Sandler Network.
Yeah, so Hamish, I'm super excited to be here, and thanks for having me. I have tremendous respect for you and what you're doing, and excited that you're launching this new podcast. So listen to the trailer in the first episode already, and excited to listen to the next couple of episodes. So as Hamish shared, my name is Mike Crandall. I own and operate our Sandler office in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Been about 12 years now. And prior to that, I like to say that I had a corporate career with the air quotes of I worked for other people and some significantly larger organizations in sales management, sales leadership roles. And then in 2009, I was introduced to this concept that we call Sandler, and was really drawn to it. I would say now fell in love with it, and the theory and the methodology and the way that we help people with growing revenue and developing talent within their organization. So I've had the office for about 12 years. I have a couple people that are part of my team. As you mentioned, I am the author of the book Motivational Management, which is really about helping people in leadership understand the things that happen in the subconscious mind that drive thoughts and actions. So drive us to do things or not to do things. And obviously, when we look at sales, that's an important thing, because it's really easy in leadership to misunderstand what really drives somebody in sales and what is that motivation.
Totally. So when we look at motivation, and you and I both share this with the leaders that we work with, is our people work for us because they believe that working for us is going to get them to their personal goals faster, right? So if we can tie their personal goals, there's a story in the book about a chocolate bar and how a chocolate bar created real motivation. Would you be comfortable sharing that story with the audience? Because it really speaks to the power of understanding people's motivations and creating what we're looking for is full funnel freedom, but it creates some momentum in the organization that you talked about.
Yeah. And, a little bit of context around that. So often in management, specifically in sales management and leadership, we waste time, energy, and money guessing at motivation or putting together incentive packages that only work for some people. And, the proverbial, analogy that's been around as long as I can recall of carrots, incentive, or sticks, fear. And what tends to happen is that those things are great for short term, but if we truly want to understand motivation, we truly want to get better results in sales, or frankly, in any role, we've got to make it something that matters to that person. And so the story in the book is a nonprofit organization that we've done work with for a long time, and how they got to the end of a different project they were doing. They had some extra resources, and the executive director who runs the organization took a couple $1,000, took all their key people out for a pretty nice lunch, higher end lunch. And she called me afterwards and she's like, I just took everybody out and I spent a whole bunch of money and it didn't seem like anybody cared. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, we just went to this restaurant and it was this much money. And that breaks down to this much per person. And it was like, I barely even got thank yous. And I said, are you willing to do an experiment with me? And she said, sure. And I said, remember when we did the exercise with your team to have everybody fill out their favorites sheet, which, by the way, is something that anybody in leadership can do regardless of who you lead. And, you can make up your own. It's just, hey, what are some of your favorite things? Favorite soda, favorite adult beverage, favorite vacation spot, favorite TV show, favorite song, favorite candy bar, things that might be good to know and might be helpful. And I said, so you've got those sheets. I said, you mentioned you've got some of the money left over. I said, this evening on your way home, why don't you go to the convenience store and buy everybody's favorite candy bar and just leave it on their desks. And so I said, I know you're always the first one in the office. Tomorrow morning when you get in, just go around the office, put everybody's favorite candy bar on their desk, Hershey's, Reese's, whatever everybody's was. Yeah. And tell me what happens. And she called me later that day and she's like, oh my God. She goes, I got more thanks and appreciation for $1 candy bars than I did for $40, $50 lunches.
Wow.
And I said, why do you think that is? And we really got to, because it was personal, because it was something that really mattered. Yeah. Also strip that away in a nonprofit organization. Some of the people probably thought that them spending that much money on a lunch that really didn't move their mission forward might be wasteful. Yeah. And so often in leadership, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, big business, small business, we end up putting time, energy, and money into things that don't produce the results we want from a motivation standpoint.
And it can be really frustrating on the back end because, like that executive director, they were more, I think, worried based on the way you shared the story than frustrated. But I know I've coached sales leaders who are, shaking their proverbial fist in the air and saying, but I did this for them and I did this for them. And then, the question is often, yeah, but do they care about that? and we are, you know, all human beings are self-centered, and as leaders, how can we use the 6 tenets of motivation in your book to really create momentum and create full funnel freedom with our teams, in a way that doesn't end up making us angry at the world because we burned a bunch of time, energy, and resources on something they didn't care about?
Yeah, well, I think a big part of that is, you know, just really breaking down what motivation is and isn't. And, you know, in the book, we talk about there's really 2 types of motivation overall. There's external and internal.
Right.
Most motivation we think about is external. We think about contests, incentives, spiffs,
Right.
trips, or we think about fear, which is also external. If you don't, you will get. And that's where the carrots and the sticks come from. And I always tell people that in sales, especially in leadership, those things can work, but they're short term.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we put money into things that don't matter. I mean, almost everybody that's been in sales leadership for some period of time has put together some fancy incentive trip package that, hey, if you win, you get to go here. And there was somebody that totally didn't even try because they'd traveled too much already that year. And the last thing they wanted to do was win an incentive that meant more travel.
Totally.
But the other type of motivation that we talk about in the book, you know, there's the external, but the internal. And this is what majority of the book is about, is what are the things inside of us that drive us to do or not to do things.
Totally.
And so one of the things that we talk about is that if you really break down internal motivation, there's 5 key parts to it. And we call it the 5 twos, as in TO. And simply listed, they're to do, to be, to have, to accomplish, and to be known for. So to do, to be, to have, to accomplish, to be known for. And the interesting thing about it is those seem pretty simple, but if I asked you, Hamish, what really drives you? You probably don't know unless you have massive high awareness and you're really attuned. You tend to give me safe, generic, socially acceptable answers like, well, I'm driven by money. Well, the interesting thing is that money is important, but it's not everything. And I always say, if you don't believe me that money is not the ultimate motivator, look at 2 professions. Look at people that go into teaching and people that go into ministry. Nobody goes into teaching or ministry because of the money, but a lot of people go into those. So money is important, but it's a relative and subjective thing.
True.
But when we get into to do, to be, to have, to accomplish, and to be known for, when we can start to break those things down and understand them, number 1, about ourselves, but then number 2, about the people we lead, it changes dynamics. And I always give people this example, Hamish. I'm a to be known for guy.
Okay.
I like the accolades. I like my name in lights. You know, if there's money that goes with that, that's great. But, you know, as long as I've got enough to pay what I need this month, I'm, you know, okay, maybe going less money, but more lights. And so, you know, I like to be the guy that gets the loudest applause, that gets his name at the top of the totem pole if there's a sales contest. And I reflect on my career and, you know, 30 years of being an adult out of school and in the grown-up working world. And there's times that I fought to win a sales contest that was a prize that I didn't even care about. You know, but I wanted to be known as the guy that won, regardless of whether I cared about the prize or not.
Totally.
And what tends to happen is that this is a simple concept, but most leaders don't ever take the time and the energy to dig in and understand it. And so encourage people to pick up a copy of the book. You know, Hamish put in the chat that, or the comments that, you know, the link to download a chapter or order it. You can get it, you know, lots of different places. For those of you that like audiobooks, it's on Audible and it's on Kindle. If, you know, that's something that matters to different people, everybody's got different formats, but the book was put together really as a handbook or a guidebook. And so every chapter ends with a question or an exercise or both to help you start to think about it differently. Because again, it's a simple concept, but not necessarily an easy thing to do.
True.
most people get external and internal motivation, but now we've got to break it down and then say, what are we going to do with it?
Well, it's also all that squishy emotional stuff. And I'm very similar. I think that's why we're good friends is I'm a to be known for guy. Clearly, I launched a podcast. So there's got to be something going on there. And also, I'm very grateful we've never been pitted up against each other on an agenda at a Sandler conference, because I think there'd be a big competition going on there. But that's one of the things that I find in reading the book and also in coaching and sharing it with leaders is leadership is typically arm's length, right? I've hired you for a role, thou shalt do the role, or I will move you on and I will bring someone else in. And what you're talking about is we're getting in deep, for lack of a better term, and we're really wanting to understand and support our people at that internal level, which we ain't trained to do. So what would the 2 baby steps, right? We talk about being better than zero a lot in our training sessions in Calgary. What are a couple of things that a leader who's maybe hearing you say this and going, that's great for everybody else, but not for me? What could they do to start walking down this path to motivating their people by the 5 2s?
Yeah. And Hamish, I love that question. And one of the exercises that I love to run people through, and by the way, everybody can do this, and you should start with yourself. Take out a blank sheet of paper, Word document on your computer, Excel sheet. I really don't care what the format is, and just reflect on the last 6 to 12 months. What are the things that have happened in your life that you are most proud of? Things that you're most proud of.
Okay.
And an interesting thing happens when people do this exercise, because I'll have people list things, and I always say, list 10 things. You can list more if you want, but at least to list 10. And some people can get to 10 that fast, and some people get to 7 and get stuck. But here's what starts to happen is then I'll say, okay, how many of those things did you set goals for? How many of those things did you build a plan for? And the interesting thing is that there's all things in our lives that we look back and we're like, man, that was really awesome. I'm really glad that happened. I'm really proud that that happened. But most of the things that we've put time and energy into, we actually didn't set goals for. We didn't shoot for. Because by the way, very seldom is on that list, I made $10,000 more than I did the year before. I have never seen on the list, hey, I paid off that credit card. I've seen things like, I spent more time with my spouse. Right. I took that vacation with my kids. I went and, had that long weekend with my parents. And what tends to happen is that there's things that we look back on that will give us clues to the things that matter most for us.
Right.
If you wrote down something like, my spouse and I took that trip and, for 7 days, neither one of us looked at our phones. That's something that was pretty important to you.
Yeah.
Well, how do I look forward now?
Right.
And then say, maybe those are some of the things that motivate you. Now, if I'm first, I got to, all motivation starts with self. You got to understand yourself. But now maybe I set some goals for that. You know what? Last year I did 1 trip like that. Maybe my goal for this year is I do 2 trips like that.
Love it.
But then I do that same exercise with my people, but I've got to start with myself. So it's not a hard team exercise. It's a simple concept. So whether you got 2 salespeople or 25 salespeople, blank sheet of paper, Word document, Excel document, what are the things the last year that you're most proud of? In life in general, tell them not to just think about work, because you'll always have people that put some in, hey, I finally got that 1 account. Yep. Most of the list tends to be personal stuff. I finally finished that book, or, I finally, bought that car that I wanted. And the spectrum of what people give you is huge.
Totally.
Now I can sit and visit with my team about it. So Hamish, you put down that, you got to go on that trip with your dad. Tell me about it. Tell me about the trip. Why was that on your list?
Absolutely.
And now I start to learn more about what's going on inside. As and I know some of the people listening are big advocates and follow Sandler. Some might not yet, and that's okay. But there's a rule straight out of the rules book in Sandler that says people work for their reasons.
Totally.
We all know that. The challenge is that I can't figure those out easily. And if I just ask you, again, most people can't tell me. Because if I say, hey, Hamish, what motivates you? You're probably going to tell me something like money.
Totally.
But money is not the end all be all. And by the way, if it's only money, that's short-lived, because there's always going to be something else that trumps that at some point in time in the future.
Very
And
true.
I think that 2020 and what happened with COVID and how it flipped almost everybody's worlds upside down in some way proved that.
Very true. Very true. Mike, I really appreciate you spending some time with us to share your insights on motivation. As we are wrapping up, what would you like to leave the audience with today in terms of creating full funnel freedom or motivation? The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, and I just appreciate our friendship so much.
Mm-hmm.
And as a colleague and a friend, excited for your podcast and everything that you're going to do with that. But I think that if I really have to strip it down, start to focus on you and what motivates you. I know some of you are owners and managers and chief revenue officers and vice presidents, and some of you are aspiring to be those things, but work on what motivates you. The better that you can understand your own motivation, the easier it is to build out a process that allows us to get to full funnel freedom. In sales, everybody loves to close the sale. The challenge is that if I don't do enough stuff to fill the funnel at the top, to use your line that I love so much, is it a funnel or a pencil? But if I focus on what really matters to me, what really drives my thoughts and actions, now I can start to rewire my mind to say, okay, how do I use that to fill my, you know what?
Absolutely.
Everybody hates cold calling, but if I know the reason and the purpose and what it allows me to do in the future, and I understand my motivation around that, doing the things that fill the funnel so I have good stuff that comes out the bottom changes dramatically.
Amen. Amen. Mike, thank you so much for joining us again. It's great to see you, sir. Take care, and I'll see you in November.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody, and good to see you.
All right, our next guest is here. Very quickly, want to highlight something that Mike said around having time, and this is a phrase that I know sometimes we hear from our clients. Oh, I don't have time for training, or you've probably heard from your salespeople. Oh, I don't have time to prospect. I got to do this. People have time for things that are important to them. When someone says, "I don't have time to fill in the blank," that is code for that is not important to me. That's fine. That's okay. But now that's an opportunity for us to dig a little bit deeper and find out, why is it not important to them? Because if it was, they would make time for it. And you've experienced that in your personal life and your professional life. You've seen it in people who you lead or who are your peers. People make time for things that are important to them. Now I'd like to bring in our next guest, dear friend, Regan Herbst from Advantage 360. So Regan, please kick us off. What is Advantage? What do you do there? And we're going to bounce around, have a quick conversation from there.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Hamish. And hello, everyone. Regan Herbst with Advantage 360. So I'm co-founder and I lead the sales team at Advantage 360. And, we're focused on the mid and large enterprise, IT security, customer base. We really work towards delivering sustainable, trustworthy, and really flexible cybersecurity solutions. Most of our clients and the leaders that we work with, they're frustrated with keeping up or keeping pace with all threats. And so we look at a simplified, sustainable model based upon their business practice to carry them forward and be agile. Business is changing. So we started the company in 2015, and we've seen exponential growth over our 6-year existence.
Very cool. Well, and Mike Crandall, who was just on, talked about how, COVID flipped everybody's worlds upside down, without being gauche about it. Your world flipped upside down. Actually, when we were down at the Sandler Sales and Leadership Summit together, I would call it a positive way. People got very concerned about cybersecurity last March. It was always on the radar, but people got very, very concerned about it. And, being a business, you're getting towards your 10th birthday, fifth birthday was I guess last year, if it was 2015. Yeah. So what my experience is with technical organizations, we had Justin Caskey on from Patch & Associates, engineering focused. Advantage, very technical organization, because you got to be, because you're in cybersecurity, tend to do the work really, really well. And that's one of the things that I've heard about Advantage 360. It is you do the work really well, but sometimes that idea of creating full funnel freedom maybe is not so important. So what have you experienced in terms of the growth of the business? You've had exponential growth. Sometimes the challenge with exponential growth is we do this and then we do this. So what are some of the things that you have done to support the organization in making that growth look more like this going forward?
Well, I guess in the last 2 years, so of the 5-year existence of our organization, we've seen high levels of growth, but what is the growth based on? And I have to say, in the last 2 years, we've been working and recognizing, we'll call it self-sustaining growth, which is an important focus. So what has changed? Well, we joined Sandler, 2+ years ago, and really had a mindset of connecting with the customer, connecting with the market, and using effective mechanisms, because we're an engineering group.
Totally.
Really, how do we template and systematize something that we can take to market to better serve?
Yeah.
And we came from a pure technical. I took a few notes just to organize my thoughts, and I thought,
please,
what have we done? We went from pure technical to becoming advanced technical with relationship foundations, which ultimately takes us from a lagging service model to a proactive leading service model. So fostering that and common language. And so we foster the entire team, technical or otherwise, our operating people, the sales team, and our service delivery team on understanding what the outcomes mean to the customer. So obviously relationships are a very key part at all levels. And so we fostered that over time. We took a technical benchmark or pure outcome-based model to a customer success model that involved the personal and the business outcomes of the people we were dealing with. We were, all about delivering the ones and zeros in the best possible way, and all of these protections, security posture. We really took a more customer outcome, because sometimes the pain that you solve is really not technical. And we built that trust in the market. So we went from a responsive to a proactive planning model. So we fostered a understand how to build the full funnel freedom and constantly, work on it. And there's ebbs and flows. Through COVID, we saw a large increase in request for our services and our solutions, but we still take a very much proactive planning approach. Where are we going to focus? How do we make it a win-win? And I've mentioned this in one of our scenarios, as we turn into a relationship and trusted advisorship form of company, we win before we win.
Yes.
And I brought that up specifically because you mentioned it and I never realized I said it. But you set yourself up for success through building credibility and the relationships. So we've been able to work higher up in the organizations that we're associated with and are partnered with. So working with directors, VPs, I have more dialogue with people with their titles beginning in C. It's really been enlightening. And so that's a proactive side. And then, the team, I talked about continuity of team. We used to be very service delivery focused, and now it's the team we will invest at the appropriate times through the opportunity cycle. And that includes our service delivery team, our management team, our operations team. Right now supply chain is a challenge. So we're bringing value in different ways.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
And questions, go ahead.
Sorry, one of the words I've learned from you, which I love, is the word artifact, which I didn't know that word really I knew what it was from an archaeological perspective. That's an Indiana Jones type artifact. But one of the things that I have heard from you regularly and I really enjoy is that idea of creating these artifacts. And so these artifacts allow the organization to be self-sustaining, because if you bring me onto the team and say, okay, Hamish, here is a library of artifacts, this is the steps that you need to go through to be successful on our team. I can imagine as a founder and as a leader that is going to allow you to elevate up to be on the business much more so than in the business.
Yeah.
Doing the things that you want to do in the business, of course, but if you have the choice, you can stay at that higher level because you've already supported your team down here. Would you be comfortable talking a bit more about those artifacts? You don't have to get into detail on what they are, but like how you see this playbook of artifacts supporting Advantis going forward and sustaining that full funnel freedom model.
Yeah, and I think it comes with the artifacts are supported by the mission, vision, and we'll call it the yearly strategy, or now, because we do quarterly planning, the quarterly strategy.
Right.
Because the artifacts need to fold back into, something that is a win-win in the market, helps us out, helps our clients out. And the artifacts that are really important include things like, here is, the levers that can be pulled in terms of the questioning, in terms of pre-call planning, and going from discovery call through to opportunity qualification is really, is this a fit? No is okay. And supporting that with not only a process, but here's some cheat sheets. And we have a very robust go-to, we'll call it mini artifact system that may be daunting to some people, but it is highly indexed and you can follow through. And, obviously the playbook mentality is really important in order to get to scale. And that's really our goal, is to, drive that scale. Quality of documentation is something that we were used to in the pro services domain. And that was a differentiator that is now translating into the sales side. So the quality of that artifact is golden, whether it's a transition to operations or what have you. So you have that same playbook mentality and you fold it into, we'll call it the opportunity and the opportunity life cycle. Did I answer your question?
100%. That was wonderful. And what I'm hearing is, Advantis 360 does amazing engineering, right? And I've got to imagine that when you are in a competitive situation, you are going up against behemoths in the market, and you're really differentiating yourself on how you sell instead of what you sell, which is a commodity to everybody. What doesn't matter what we're selling, cybersecurity, consulting, doesn't matter. But what I'm hearing is you took the best of what you did on the engineering side, and you said, this on the sales side, we can translate this and we can take what makes us awesome here and turn it into something that's going to make us awesome over here. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you're bang on. I think one of the things that is evident is that velocity, which is another one of my favorite words.
Yes, love that word.
In order to quickly articulate value, and so you translate, well, what made us successful over here? Well, it's being educated on the market, the technology, the pains that our customers are experiencing, and then translating it quickly. So effective questioning and communication. So that was one of the things from the engineering side, is like, we used to heavily invest in discovery, technical discovery, so that we knew exactly what we were getting into, to scoping, etc.
Sure.
Well, the questioning side on the sales side, it's the same methodology. Sandler's a huge supporter of that questioning methodology. And that was one example of how we translated from the engineering side to the sales side. So being curious, investing in your customer at the business level, personal pain level, and things like that. So yeah, absolutely.
Very cool. Well, Regan, I really appreciate you taking some time out. Anyone who do a very quick Google search on cyber anything, and you can appreciate how much Regan has on his plate. So I really appreciate your support in everything, as well as joining us today. As we're wrapping up, if there is a very technical leader out there, whether they're doing cybersecurity or they have a technical background like you do, what would be one thought you would leave them with in terms of starting down this path to creating full funnel freedom in the organization? They do great tech stuff. It's always going to be great, but they're going to eventually have to create full funnel freedom and scale. What would you encourage them to start with? Certainly not asking for them to call me, by the way. I'll put that out there up front. But what would you encourage them to do?
self-actualization, I think, is
Ooh.
very important.
Okay.
And bring the team along with you on the journey. Like, do not do this on your own. I would say it is
Well said.
important to bring the team along, because you're not going to change overnight. So you need to change through iterations. You need the champions. You need to work through some pains
Amen.
to get there.
Amen.
Ultimately speaking, because the power of the relationship at many levels it's exhilarating. And they're friends and trusted partners and the like. So that's
Absolutely.
the one thing I'd leave with you.
I very much appreciate that, Regan. Great to see you. Thank you for your support. I look forward to seeing you offline sometime soon. Have an awesome rest of your week. Take care.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
So we've had a number of really amazing guests, Regan being the most recent one. Appreciate you joining us for this launch party, whether you've been with us since we started at 1 o'clock Mountain Time or whether you've jumped in and out. We are going to be sharing this again on our social media. So do keep watching. Again, we are dropping episodes of the Full Funnel Freedom podcast out every single day this week. We had 3 launch on Monday, including the trailer. So trailer and episodes 1 and 2. Episode 3 came out today, 4 tomorrow, 5 on Thursday, and then episode 6 on Friday. So please continue to watch and subscribe and listen to them. That really helps boost us back up. As I mentioned earlier, as of early this morning, we were number 78 in Canada in the business podcast category, number 5 in the careers category, which our consultant, Anna Parker Naples, says is really, really incredible. So thank you for helping us out and continuing to support us and sharing. We have our last guest for the day, last but certainly not least in any form or fashion. He has been a longtime friend and supporter. Alex, take 60 seconds. Tell us who you are, who you represent, and what do you do?
Thanks for inviting me to join your show. Alex McGill of Sure Systems, IT consulting and support and services here in Calgary. We come in and support, mid-sized businesses, small-sized businesses when they've got pain in their IT, and we just make that pain go away.
Very cool. Very cool. You have often used the gym analogy. I love the gym analogy that you use when you describe what Sure System does. So, Alex, when we first got together and connected, one of the things that you said to me is, I am a CEO salesperson. And I said, what the hell does that mean? And what the hell does that mean? So we are looking to create full funnel freedom. And oftentimes we are looking to do that, through others and build a team. But when you start up, you're the team. And so tell us a bit more about this whole CEO salesperson idea and how it supported you in growing Sure Systems to where it is today.
It's been an interesting journey. So when I started off, I was a technical person. I had essentially hands-on tools, and I guess your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. And it was actually hard to sell.
Oh,
right, and to develop into that.
Okay.
And then I realized that probably the best salesperson was going to be me. So I invested heavily into principle-led selling because I needed to grow the business. I needed to grow revenue. I needed to grow that bottom line.
Yeah.
Right. And then where things have really gone well, I think, is that through your support and mentorship and learning from you, we've been able to grow a team.
Yes.
We have people that are selling and propelling the business forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember the day you called me up, and I was at my desk at my previous training center over in Montgomery, Bowness adjacent for those who are in Calgary, as I like to say. And you said, you know what, I need help in hiring a salesperson. And I believe my response was, why would you do a dumb thing like that? And why did you do a dumb thing like that, Alex? Salespeople are hard to manage. What was the vision behind, okay, I'm principle-led selling, now I got to build a team? Like what was the source of inspiration or madness, so to speak?
Well, I think I realized that I only have so many cycles in my day, and I got a lot of things going on as the CEO. And in order to grow it the way that I want it to, I needed more people doing it. And actually, I kind of learned too that I needed to have the right people in the right places. So like, let's say if I was building a baseball team, I may not expect everybody to play every position the same way.
Fair.
right? And I kind of started off with having somebody that prospected for me and opened the door and helped qualify.
Okay.
And then I maximized my team a little bit better. And then I kind of built out from there.
Okay. So then as you have grown this team out, and actually before we get to that, you had a really brilliant way of actually qualifying your candidates for that role, because as you said, you got a lot on your calendar. As leaders, our only valuable is our time. I've heard horror stories as many as 1,200, 1,400 applications for a single role. And neither you nor I have, even if we split that work up, that's our whole week. So what was the thing that you did instead of saying, send your resume to careers at Sure Systems, when you were looking for that initial candidate? Because I think it's brilliant, and I'd love it if more people stole it, because I think it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I think it worked pretty well. We actually had them call a number and leave a reason why for us to basically sell to us.
Yeah.
And the prevailing thought was if they weren't going to follow up with us and they weren't going to make us want to buy from them or buy, how are they going to sell our product if they can't sell their product?
100%.
Right. So they left a voicemail message, and it had to be clear, concise, and understandable, and give us a good reason to talk to them.
Yeah. And I think I swear you said in a session once, it was like 7 seconds or less, you could tell whether or not you wanted to talk the person back.
Probably less than that. It was great for disqualifying, and actually disqualifying sometimes better than qualifying.
Amen, brother. Amen. So salespeople are challenging. I think that's a fairly obvious statement. It has not certainly been all sunshine and roses and unicorns in building out your sales team. So what are some of the things that you have learned? Because you have had some really good successes in adding people. You've had some things that didn't work out as well as we both hoped. What are some of the lessons that you would want to share with a leader who is going down the path of building out a sales team to create full funnel freedom, that maybe you've got a couple of scars on your back from that you want them to avoid?
I don't know if I'd actually want them to avoid the scars, because I think the scars are what you learn from.
Sure.
It's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back a lot of times.
Okay.
I think that I may have had funny ideas in my head that managing a sales team was hard, and I think I may have made it harder than it was.
Okay.
Right. We start, getting the right people on the team and managing them well is a big deal. So,
True.
Building out the list of what you want. I think you call it your search model.
Yep.
But finding the right one, managing them, holding them accountable to what their goals are.
Yeah. Good point.
It's, I think Sandler has some sort of line about it being, training through reinforcement or something. I probably got it wrong.
Something like that.
Right. But that's what it is. It's sort of, you kind of have to stay in it. It's not like you take a Sandler class. I learned how to hire a salesperson. All right, forgot it. What happens is actually I have to go into the classroom every once in a while for a tune-up.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably the biggest thing. It's keeping yourself engaged in it. Don't disengage. Realize that you're going to get some battle scars. Battle scars are good. And sell stuff.
Well, we often say to the leaders we work with, especially those who are in enterprise type sales, there is this mindset that, well, my sales cycle is 6, 9, 8, 12, 14 months. Ergo, I've got to carry this new salesperson with me for that length of time. The fact of the matter is they don't. If they're not performing in the first 3 weeks, it ain't going to get better. I'm just going to tell everybody that. Alex is nodding. He's experienced this. But you and I both are martial artists, different disciplines. But the idea of the tune-up, because you do martial arts for a while and eventually it hurts a little bit more when you go train, but you want to go back and still do it. So what is it about that dipping your toe back in the water, going back in the dojo, whatever analogy we want to use, that really keeps you engaged and keeps that momentum in keeping the funnel full on a regular basis?
Well, okay. So using the martial arts analogy, you may learn a movement. They call them a kata in the discipline that I'm in, right? Or in karate. And you learn it and you think you got it, right? Okay. You move this way and it does this thing, but and it flows. And then what ends up happening is that you use it for a while and you kind of get that muscle memory on it.
Yep.
But you may not totally understand it. You think you do, but you don't.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you do it in the class again, or you watch somebody else doing it. And, and that's a very similar to being in the classroom and seeing people role play and talk things through. And then what happens is there's another level of understanding. Right. If I just move this way a little bit different. And
true.
I needed that in order to be able to teach my staff and coach my staff. So while they're really dependent on you, you're the sensei and I'm senpai, where I may, follow up with some of the lessons and such, but I have to have that lesson or that understanding. Mm-hmm. And you alluded to the length of your sales cycle, where sometimes it's this long, and you're right, 3 weeks into it, maybe even sooner, Yeah. But if you're actually employing the techniques right and actually being smart about what you're doing and you've got the movements down, well, think of how much better how more profitable you are. Instead of a 9-month sales cycle, it's a 6-month or shorter. And those gains that you can get, I think, are exponential.
Amen. And of course, there's been moments where I've said, "Come on, Alex, attack me," and he's like, "I already did," and then I fall over, and that's how the movie ends. But here's something else that you said in session. You've said it many times in session, and it's bloody brilliant because it's something that our salespeople will do over and over and over again. And the phrase that you said is, "Don't unintentionally lengthen your sales cycle." Would you speak a little bit to that? Because I have coached many leaders who are grinding their teeth down to dust with salespeople who are making their cycles go like this. So what does it mean to not unintentionally lengthen your sales cycle?
Well, I think it can mean a lot of things. Sometimes we make things more complicated than they need to be. Sometimes the salesperson will have the meeting that they're getting ready to get ready.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's meetings that they don't need to have with the prospects. I very much believe that business people bond by getting down to getting business. I think that might be a line that I stole from you.
And I stole it from my friend Andrew Wall. So the world goes round.
But people appreciate a clear and concise with a strong upfront agreement on what's going to go next and things moving forward. Totally. Why sell in 9 months when you can sell in 3 or less?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
And not in an aggressive way, though, right? Like I want to make sure that everyone understands. Alex is not talking about arm wrestling your prospect, bending him over the table, and forcing him to sign an agreement. This is the prospect actually saying, "Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense," as opposed to us going, "Hey, Alex, I'll call you in 4 weeks and we'll get together for a proposal meeting."
Yeah, it doesn't work when it's aggressive. I don't think.
No, not at all.
People appreciate knowing what's going to happen next. We're going to do this, basically here's my agenda, here's your agenda. We're going to find something and we're either going to move forward or we're going to not. One of the two. Perfect. People appreciate that. Especially when they are at a decision-making level, right? There are certain levels in an organization, does not make them any worthless as a human being, but there are some levels who are very happy to take meetings with salespeople. Yes. And they'll take them all day long. And they can't say anything other than not interested, or what's more likely is, I'd like to think about that, Alex. Maybe you could send me a brochure or a proposal and I'll get back to you never. Well, and then the sales guy goes, "Man, I got one. I've got an opportunity to deliver a proposal." Oh, you've met a salesperson. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Yes. You've met this animal. Yes. Well, and that's where what I find is our rush to chuck a proposal, do a demo, have a lunch and learn, simply because that person breathes and has expressed some modicum of interest in what we do. Well, I'm interested in lots of things. It doesn't mean I'm going to buy them, but I'm certainly going to ask for all of the information that you are happy to dispense on me for free, because as the saying goes, why would I buy the cow when I get the milk for free? And what I have seen, and you've obviously experienced as well, is that trend away from, let's just get down to business, figure out if this is a good fit. If it's not, I will love you from afar, as my friend Carlos says. No now doesn't mean no forever. Or we can actually figure out that you've got a challenge that I can solve and I can fix it for you faster than you ever thought possible, and you will love me forever. Is that accurate? Yeah, that's actually going back to, being a salesperson's job to get to the truth.
Sure.
Right. And if we're going in there, if we can solve the problem or not, and taking that to its logical conclusion is the way to go.
Right. Right. But sometimes we don't like the truth because the truth is not a good fit. And oh my God, that's the only opportunity I'm working right now.
But if they can give you introductions, it's all good.
Nice way. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Ask for introductions all the time. My friend Andrew Wall, I mentioned earlier, he's out in just west of Toronto, and actually his first client ever came from a prospect who at the end of their discovery visit said, I don't want to work with you. And he said, hey, that's fair enough. We're not a good fit for everybody. Who in your network might want to have a conversation with me? And think about that from a salesperson's perspective. We've just invested 60, 90, 120 minutes with a person who has rejected us. We're back on the playground being left out of playing Foursquare or tag. And Andrew still had the guts to say, I appreciate you telling me that. Who might you want to introduce me to? And clearly it worked out for him because he got a client out of it.
We've actually had fairly decent success with that, because sometimes the reason that you've been rejected isn't because you're a bad person or anything like that. It just didn't fit.
No, just didn't fit. We're not a good fit for everybody. And that's another thing that really makes us stand out to our prospects based on how we sell instead of what we sell, leading with that disarming honesty of saying, Alex, I'm really glad that we're talking about your IT needs. Sure Systems is not a good fit for everybody. If you feel it's not a right fit for you, please tell me that. Let's not waste each other's time. And feeding back the language you've heard from prospects. Oh, I don't want to waste your time, which is code for I want to waste your time. And when we feed their words back to them or give them the things they were going to say in advance, all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is a different person. I haven't met this type of person before. All of a sudden our credibility is going up, not by us going, look how awesome we are, but by how we interact with our prospect. So Alex, as we're wrapping up, I've kept you a few more minutes longer than I had asked for, so I appreciate your extra time. How would you encourage a principal-led organization to transition into this? I am not only the chief sales officer, but I'm also now a sales leader. What would you encourage them to do to start on the path to creating full funnel freedom through a team?
Well, as just do it is another thing to do. And sometimes you can overplan, to get ready to get ready, right?
True.
Sandler stuff, as you're learning to do principle-led selling, I became a better listener, which meant I became a better manager.
Well said.
Yeah. Which meant that I became a better coach for my salespeople.
Yeah. And
I learned how to hold them accountable. Great book, by the way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And just get on, start doing it, follow through. Don't forget to go to class once in a while yourself. Hold your people accountable to their goals.
Yes.
More than your goals, their goals. What matters in it for them? Think about the psychology angle of it, which you teach very well.
Thank you.
And enjoy some sales. Just keep your foot on the gas.
Amen, brother. Amen. Well, Alex, you've got a lot on your plate. Really appreciate you making some time for us today. Have an awesome rest of your week, and I'll look forward to catching up with you offline soon.
See you, buddy.
Take care. Well, as we're wrapping up, very much appreciate you hanging out with us today. Big thank yous to all of our guests, Alex, Regan, Mike, Justin, and Antonio, who have given us some really, really amazing insights on how to create full funnel freedom in your organization, whether you are principal-led selling like Alex just talked about, or whether you are leading or teams like Mike Stark and Justin were talking about, and then building out that process like Regan was talking about, where you take things that already make you awesome and then apply them into that sales context and that customer-facing context. So again, the links to the podcast are in the chat. The contest details are at fullfunnelfreedom.com. The contest is open until, I believe, 11:59 p.m. on Monday, October the 11th, 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time, on Monday, October the 11th, which, if you are in Canada, is, of course, Thanksgiving. So we will announce the winners through randomized draw later next week. Appreciate you sharing the podcast, joining us today, asking questions. Certainly here to support my foundational values, which you can see on my LinkedIn profile, are achievement, celebration, support, and learning. And I get to live all of those every single day. I am massively, massively excited about the direction of the podcast. I am super excited about how the team at Sandler in Calgary is growing and all the amazing things that we get to do in order to support our clients in creating full funnel freedom in their organization. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes back in your day. Have a fantastic rest of your day, rest of your week. Until we connect with you offline, please rate and review, like, follow, and share the podcast, and go create full funnel freedom. Take care, everyone.